Hello, we're glad that you're interested in a sustainable hospitality industry. In collaboration with the International Finance Corporation and the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, we from the Better Hospitality Initiative organized an online workshop on green and resilient hotels at the end of May 2023. We recorded the workshop so that you could watch it. We are sure it provides you with some interesting thoughts and practice insights. Hello, everyone. It's 1 o'clock here in Switzerland. It's very early in the morning. I think, is it 7 o'clock in Washington, Rusmir? Is that correct?
Correct.
And already quite late in East Asia, Southeast Asia. So we're really spanning a good part of the globe. Thank you so much for being with us, and welcome to the online workshop on green resilient hotels, which we organize in the context of the Better Hospitality Initiative, which is carried out by 13 and more local networks of the Global Compact, the UN Global Compact, whose logos you see here in this slide. My name is Alex Gertschen. I work as researcher at the University of Bern in Switzerland, and I'm heading the Better Hospitality Initiative. Today with us are the following protagonists who will offer you the opportunity to learn more about green and resilient hotels and sort of to get a deep dive into the topics that were tackled in a webinar series offered by the International Finance Corporation and the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. Now I'm just trying to move that slide. Perfect. There we are. So with us is Antonio Haudle, Executive Director of the Global Compact Network Switzerland and Liechtenstein, who started this initiative. Please, Antonio. Hello.
Thank you, Alex. Hello, welcome to all of you, also especially to our speakers and co-organizers. It's a huge pleasure to have you with us. Also, a warm welcome to my colleagues from the other local networks. Just to make the context, it's about how to improve and become more sustainable in the sector of tourism. The first part, can you maybe mute yourself? Thank you. The first part of this activity is now really on better hospitality, and with a focus on construction, building, climate, as we will see afterwards. But the idea is that we continue what we started 2 years ago with the sustainability dialogue for tourism, and we think about to go on afterwards. And especially those who are here for the first time, we will have follow-up webinars, trainings in fall of this year. And we are looking very much forward to have you on board also in the continuous activities we will offer later this year. But now it's my pleasure really to have IFC with us and the Sustainability Hospitality, Better Hospitality Alliance. And I hand over to Alex for the webinar, and I'm hoping that you're really bringing your questions in it and that we have a vivid dialogue together.
Thank you. Thank you, Antonio. You already mentioned some of the additional protagonists. We have with us, there it goes, Rusmir Muzic, Upstream Operations Officer of the IFC, and Claire Whiteley, Head of Environment of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. Hello, Rusmir and Claire.
Hi, Alex.
Hello.
Hi there. Thank you so much for being with us. And they invited a client of theirs. Well, actually, Rusmir invited a client of IFC with whom he collaborated for edge projects that are being sort of designed along the edge standard of the IFC, namely Pierre-Etienne de Montgrand, Head of Asset Management at Casada Capital Management at Johannesburg, South Africa, and Lopang Rapodile, who's associate with Casada Capital Management, which is a real estate private equity platform dedicated to hospitality in Africa. Hello and good afternoon, Pierre and Lopin.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, before we start with an introduction by Rusmir and Claire, we'd like to make a short warm-up, and we'd like to know where you stand, where your companies stand regarding decarbonization. Because as Antonio said, this is supposed to be as interactive as possible, not only today, but the whole Better Hospitality initiative. And in order to make this workshop and the whole initiative as useful for you as possible, it's important for us to know where you stand, what your challenges are. And in order to do so, I'd like to share a couple of additional slides with you. There we go. Here you see a slide with the extended World Travel and Tourism Council's Decarbonization Action Framework. Why extended? Because the WTTC found 4 phases of decarbonization: assess and define, build and enable, reduce and collaborate, monitor and report. And we added an additional, stage before: understand and take a stance, because in the end, in order to start the process of decarbonization, it's in the end both a cognitive and a normative question. You need to understand what's happening around you, and you also need to commit in a way to go that way. And of course, there are different approaches how to go about decarbonization, but I think this one here is easy and accessible enough and compatible with a lot of others. And that's why we will work with this one throughout the initiative. Now, what do the different stages imply? Again, I'm trying to change the slides. There we go. Really, what is it that needs to be understood, and and with respect to what do we need to take a stance? No, first of all, it's about understanding that we are in the Anthropocene, which is the epoch when mankind has become a decisive factor for the stability or instability of the whole planetary of our planetary system. Climate change being just one of different planetary boundaries. We need to understand that this huge impact is new and implies a new kind of responsibility for all of us. Then we need to understand how the market moves, both from the side of the consumers, their preferences, but also what political decisions and strategies are being taken, and eventually lead to concrete regulation, thinking of the EU taxonomy or other regulations that are being implemented. And last but not least, of course, we need to understand what all of this means for our company. What are the requirements we have to fulfill? What are the responsibilities we have to assume? And what are the opportunities? Because in the end, this means a huge change, and change always brings about winners and losers. And of course, it's our aim that we are among those who win with this change and do not lose. Then the 4 other stages are assessing and defining. That refers to the following aspects. The remote control is a bit slow. Lorena. There we go. Among assessing and defining, the tasks are to create a carbon inventory, to make materiality assessment, to define climate targets, and to define a net zero strategy. Then the second or third stage is to ensure leadership involvement, to ensure the financing of the process, to ensure that employees are capable and motivated to go along that process, to trigger and sort of carry that process. And governance and steering are is another task that belongs to the building and enabling stage. Stage 3 and 4 respectively is about reduction and collaboration regarding carbon reduction, regarding carbon compensation, regarding supporting partners and collaborating with stakeholders, because decarbonization in the end can be partly done as an individual company, but in the end, if we really want to do the job, we need to then do that in a collaborative way. And last but not least, it's about monitoring and reporting. It's about voluntary disclosures, data and monitoring capabilities, and progress reporting. And of course, this process is not a linear process, which can be started and comes to a definite end, but it's rather a cycle. And maybe most of you know the PDCA cycle, the Deming cycle, which consists of the planning, the doing, the checking, and then sort of the adapting strategies and measures to enter a cycle of continuous improvement. So decarbonization in the end is such a cycle. And there we go. Now, we would like to know regarding these different stages, regarding that cycle, where your company stands. Now, we'd like to invite you to scan this QR code and let us know, where does your company stand? And the more of you participate, the better we know what your needs are. And we'd like sort of to include your answers in today's workshop. So please make good use of that opportunity. I just ensure that it works. Yeah, perfect. First answers are coming in. Please, as many as possible, participate. And maybe while you are filling in this or participating in this survey, I can say that 2 days ago, we had a similar workshop, or actually the same workshop, with participants from Latin America, mainly in Spanish. And it was very clear sort of that the first 1 to 2 stages, really the part of comprehending, understanding, and taking a stance, and then of assessing, defining, were the main challenges here. It tends to be rather the very first stage and the last stage, monitoring and reporting.
Please, can you make sure that you get muted if you're not speaking? Thank you.
Okay, so that's good to know. That's good to know. That's an interesting result. So we really, I think, Rosemary, Claire, for us, that also means that we really have to start with the context, now the why. The why is it necessary to start that process of decarbonization now? But of course, the utility, the value of an instrument like EDGE is that sort of includes also the monitoring and reporting part. So we will take that into account. Thank you so much for your answers. And maybe you could also let us know, that will be the following slide, what the 5 biggest challenges of decarbonization are. If you have already tackled the question, where have you encountered the 5 biggest challenges? Please, you on your smartphone, you should now see these questions. Please answer them as well, so that we get an idea. Are you able to fill in the survey, or does that not work? There we go. Okay, we have 1 participation. We need more. Please let us know. What are the biggest challenges? We need more answers. Rosemary will certainly be able to help you also with the part of financing. What else do you need to know? Okay. Please keep on filling in this questionnaire because it's not just thought to be used today, but also for the future. So the more answers we get, the better we can provide a service to you. That's really of use. Great, more and more are participating. So I think the topic of finance and budgeting will definitely have to take into account in the discussion. And I would say we stop here, and we'll come back to the results of this little survey. And now I would like to ask Rusmir to give that introduction to the topic of the webinar series and today's workshop. Lorena,
thank you so much
for
having me. Mm-hmm. Great, I'll share my screen. And hopefully that's coming through well. So thanks again to Alex and the group for having us. Again, if you didn't catch my name is Rusmir. Rusmir, if you can roll your R's. I was born and raised in Bosnia, in Europe, and have been in the United States for many, many years, including 10 years with the IFC. So our kickoff is to spend just a few minutes going through the recap of the information that was shared in the previous 3 webinars. So we hope that you either participated or watched them. This will be a fairly quick refresher. I don't think I included here some of the reasons for climate action, and we did cover that in our first webinars. Maybe I'll talk about it now. In the paper that we launched with the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, it was called the Business Case for Sustainable Hotels. And you'll actually see some really great case studies that talk about the need for action from an environment point of view, which is, if we're going to reach climate targets, then all buildings, not just in the hotels, have to be net zero by 2050. So that means that all new buildings have to be done in a decarbonized way, but we also actually have to retrofit existing buildings in line with zero carbon standards. And that timeline, is sort of shrinking. The good news is that every single action in this space has a really positive and attractive payback period for you. So while you are benefiting the environment, there's that triple bottom line mentality that if you're managing the environment, you're actually also managing your profits, because green action means reducing your utility bills for energy and water. It means having a long-term energy supply strategy. I've stayed in many hotels in Africa that have, diesel generators because the grid is not reliable. And you can imagine, fuels in this environment are going to be very expensive. We talk a lot about protecting yourself from regulatory action. So in places like New York, where there has been a very aggressive regulation on green buildings, if you don't retrofit your buildings, you could be paying $1 million a year fine in taxes and other things if your building doesn't reach standards. And these kind of policies are happening elsewhere. So we're basically showing that there's quite a lot of very positive business case, especially for launching new hotels, but also for retrofitting existing hotels. I'll turn it over to Claire. Claire, I can run the slides for you to talk about the offer from the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, and then I'll turn it back to me and I can go through the information on what we have from IFC.
That's great. Thanks very much, Rusmir. So what I'll do is I'll just start with a bit of an introduction to the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance and who we are, because I'm sure there are several of you on the call who have never heard of us before. So hopefully we'll change that today. So we are an organisation that brings together engaged hospitality companies and strategic partners, and we use the collective power of the industry to deliver impact within local communities and on global issues. We work with senior executives from our hotel members and partners to address key challenges which are affecting our planet and its people. And our members make up over 40% of the global hotel rooms across the whole of the industry, and that's ever growing at the moment, as I'm sure you can imagine, with the interest in sustainability increasing. And this includes 23 world-leading hotel companies with a combined reach of 50,000 properties and 7 million rooms. We also work with other parts of the value chain. So down the bottom there, you can see some owners, investors, and other partners, such as suppliers to the industry, consultants, who are also supporting the hotel companies to become more sustainable. And this enables us to create a much more joined up industry approach to tackling sustainability issues, because, you know, we all need to collaborate on this. So one of the key questions that we often hear from our members and from across the industry is about how do they know what to do first and how do we finance the work? We've been helping the industry to start to answer the first question by creating the pathway to net positive hospitality. And this brings together and tries to align the industry behind the most material and crucial issues, and shows how they can achieve our vision for a prosperous and responsible hospitality sector that gives back more than it takes. And it breaks the journey down into 4 stages with a step-by-step approach for measuring impact, minimizing negative impact, achieving net zero while leaving no one behind by engaging with suppliers and taking innovative approaches, and finally giving back more than you take across the whole of the value chain. And it's very well aligned with WTTC's framework that Alex mentioned at the beginning, and also incorporates the WTTC basics framework, which you may have seen as well, which is kind of the first step on the journey. So we're all working together as an industry to try and align things together. And as Rizmir just mentioned, we created the business case for sustainable hotels together. And there are many benefits, financial and reputational, to building and operating a sustainable hotel. And during the season, we talk mostly about boosting profit margins through utility savings and increased value through certifications such as EDGE. And these and other benefits, such as increasing staff engagement and retention, then you can really see that you're increasing retention, because they can see that you're kind of aligned with their values. And this is all described in the report that we co-published with IFC and is available on the website. And I think, Alex, thank you for popping that into the chat as well. That was very useful. So one of the first things that should be done when looking to become a greener and more resilient hotel is to get an understanding of the impacts and performance of your business. And for this, we've created the Hotel Carbon Measurement Initiative and the Hotel Water Measurement Initiative. And there's also a waste methodology as well. And these really enable a hotel to calculate and communicate the carbon, waste and water footprints per occupied room on a daily basis, but also thinking about the meeting space within hotels as well. So they not only enable you to get an understanding of your impacts for yourself, but also you can communicate that with customers, for example, who might be very interested. We know that they're getting more and more interested in the impacts of hotels and where they're staying. So these tools and methodologies are available for free. Everything that we have is freely available on our website. We want to support the whole of the industry. And the figures that you get from these tools can be benchmarked against the hotel industry's largest annual benchmarking, which is called the Cornell Hotel Sustainability Benchmark. And this will enable you to not only understand what your performance is, but also to get an understanding of how you compare with others. And to help the industry become more resilient through an even deeper understanding, we've created something called the Destination Water Risk Index. And this helps hotels to understand the different water-related risks faced by different locations. And it covers 379 destinations across 63 countries. and breaks down risks into the physical, the financial, and the market risks to really help you to understand what the key risks are in your location, and then kind of take that information and understand what you need to do about it, you know, whether it's a physical risk such as drought, or there's an issue around kind of the cost of water. So that was something that we went through in a bit more detail in the last webinar. So that's a brief overview of everything that we covered in the webinars, and I'll just pass back to Rizmir to cover off the offerings from the IFC side.
Thanks so much, Claire. From our end, IFC is a member of the World Bank Group, and we provide investments to the private sector. So IFC is first and foremost an investment bank, but what differentiates us from other institutions is that we provide what we call patient capital. So that typically means longer tenors or some sort of other competition, you know, in the market. And we can deploy advice and innovative structuring to overcome local barriers to investment. IFC has been working in the green building space in many years, so we cover a variety of sectors, not just hotels. And we have a global engagements through a 4-part approach. And that includes investment and advisory with the public sector, with the developers and the building owners, and with banks. And these interventions are built around our tools, EDGE, and the Building Resilience Index. In our first webinar, so again, all of this is available on the website with both the presentation and the recording. We talked about our integrated program, and we call it GRIP. That stands for Greening Real Estate Investment Portfolios. GRIP is a one-stop shop that not only helps the owners define and implement their transition, but actually also finance it. So IFC can deploy a host of different innovative structures. These are some of them here. These may include equity, debt, working capital, other innovative structures, and we're very excited for the universe of what we call the green label products we have been utilizing. These include green bonds and green loans, which have been a very fast-growing instrument, and IFC typically acts as an anchor investor for first-time issuers and preparing them for future issuances. Many of our clients do say they see what's called a greenium, which is a premium paid by investors for green bonds, which ultimately lowers their interest rate. Sustainability-linked bonds and loans are all connected to key performance indicators for the life of the loan, and the pricing structure usually includes incentives based on KPIs. On the advisory side, we did a deep dive into EDGE. This is another innovation of IFC and stands for Excellence in Design for Greater Efficiencies. The initiative consists of 3 components. First, we have a free software that helps you choose the most cost-effective ways to build green. The software is free and can be accessed from the EDGE website. And so what IFC does is we teach and kind of educate people of how to use it, but then the ultimate usage is something that you do on your own through our army of EDGE consultants that we call EDGE experts. EDGE is an achievable green standard, which is related to financial standards. So it allows you to access international green finance. It starts with a 20% resource efficiency criteria and puts the building on the path toward net zero achievement. And third, EDGE is a certification system to verify and reward green building projects through a green label, which can then be used, for example, in websites like booking.com, where now travelers can search for hotels that have been green certified to look for their green features. That's something that booking.com launched recently. The great thing about a tool like EDGE is that it's a one-stop shop. It has very robust technical specifications, but the user interface is very friendly. For each green intervention, EDGE calculates the payback period based on utility bill savings. So Claire mentioned it's a lot of what we talked about in our previous webinars. So a hotel can understand where they will get the best returns based on the local climate. If you're in Mongolia, it's going to be very different than if you're in Kenya. And even if you're in Kenya, if you're on the coast in Mombasa, it's going to be very different if you're in Nairobi with a more temperate climate. So all of that is included in the calculation. The certification from EDGE then becomes the common language that connects the investor, the building owner, the traveler, and can be used for marketing and promotion. We have a huge library of case studies. We can talk about them today, and obviously with our clients directly. This is a very small preview of the certified hotels. Many more available on the website. And you can see that we have representation for some of the biggest brands, such as Hilton, Marriott, Accor, as well as local brands such as Fiesta Americana in Latin America and Panorama Land in Indonesia. On the resilience side, the sister tool to EDGE is our Building Resilience Index. This is another free tool. Both of these were launched with collaboration with donor governments, including the Swiss, which have given us a lot of funds to create a free public tool. And Building Resilience Index allows you to assess, mitigate, and disclose your hotel's resilience to both climate shocks and geoseismic events like earthquakes. This tool can let you know if you are at risk, for example, of flooding, storms, sea level rise, and then suggest best practices to address these risks. Disclosing your actions can help you access additional sources of finance or get better insurance terms for your property. So that's our recap. So again, for a deeper dive, do access all the information online, and we can see how many questions we can answer today from the Q&A. And I'll stop sharing from my side.
Thank you, Rusmir. Thank you so much. And as Rusmir already said, you're all invited, obviously, to share your questions with us in the chat. And but in the meantime, I would like to ask Pierre and Lopang, who have made their experience in moving towards net zero, or at least in decarbonizing their properties. Maybe you could share with us, Pierre and Lopang, how did it all start? What was the triggering momentum, say, where you said, okay, we need to tackle that question? And at what point did you look for the collaboration with IFC?
Okay, so on our side from Casada, we just to give a bit of a background for everybody, we are an investment fund who is investing in hospitality only, and we are made of, the team are hospitality experts who have for all of them decades and decades into hospitality on the ground. So it's not like if suddenly we were discovering what hospitality means. Myself, I spent 15 years in the operations, and basically we have a passion for hospitality and we love hospitality. And I believe if you want to make any initiative in hospitality, you need to be an hotelier in your heart and of course in your mind, because it's hospitality, whilst many other industry are process driven and all of those, and it can work very well with an AI and with this. Hospitality is all about giving a service. It's a people driven industry, which will always remain a people driven industry. We've had some global, a few global worldwide pandemic recently, and there was lots of questions. Are we going to go back to hospitality for the industry and the people? So the people in our hotels, when you've worked for a long time in operations, in the same way as all of us are interested in sustainability, it's the same for the staff in the hotels when you work in the hotel. They want to actually see the hotel also being more resilient. Why? Because this is something which is also a concern for them at their home, at their house, and everybody today want to see, okay, what can I do to be able to improve my resilience being at home. And again, you can have exactly the same mindset for your teams and your entire team that comes into the hotel. So then comes one big question, which is, why did we choose age? Because like I said, the team in our hotels is very keen on doing something. But then why age? There are today out there numbers of different sustainability programs with number of different certification, and I speak under the control of Rosmir, but IFC is not the only company who has developed a green certification. So what we wanted is that, as all of you would know, is that Africa is not one continent, it's dozens of countries, and we need to make sure that we can have consistency across. And what was most important for us, and this is what we had, what we wanted to say, is that we wanted to say, if we do something, we must be able to say that it is applied in all of our hotels. Today we have a portfolio which is spanning across close to 8 to 9 countries, and every countries have different, how would I say, different specificities which might not allow you to do some of the certification that you have in Europe, because you need to have a number of a support mechanism at the local level, which might not always be the case. And therefore, we had to add a certification where we would be able to say, we do something, it is clear, and it is measurable. Because like everywhere, if you say we are doing something, yes, but we only have it in one hotel, because in the hotels it's not applicable because of XYZ, suddenly it nearly defeats the purpose of doing it in one hotel, in my view. Because like I was saying at the beginning, this request is a request which comes from the team and the staff in the hotels. They are very keen to do something. They want to do something. Today, having LED in a room, or having water to be able to reduce the water consumption in Africa, there are lots of places where water is very valuable, and everybody is valuing this. It's not something that we have to make anyone discover in our hotel teams. Then, when you can have a certification which across our portfolio of hotels that we own is the same, well, it does bring straight away a lot of best practices. Why? Because suddenly, for all our hotels across the portfolio, they are all talking about the same certification. And then everybody can say, because hotels will talk with one another, and they will say, okay, you're also on age. Oh, you also do this certification. What have you done to be able to improve? And then you start the process. Then we found with age is that it's like everything. Today we have nearly 9 hotels being certified. Most of them are certified with what we call age certification, and we have our first hotel that was certified with age advance. So normal age certification, for all of you that know, it's a minus 20% on your global utility bill versus before you started, and versus before you started the whole process. Age advance is minus 40% versus your normal utility consumption before you started the initiatives of improving your performance. And this is exactly what I was mentioning. Best practices. Suddenly, when you start having one hotel that achieves the certification, the other tells themselves, okay, how did you do it? And then it comes back to what I was saying. The teams are very keen. Why? Because suddenly we have seen a momentum of, I would say, a positive effect or a virtuous cycle, where suddenly the teams themselves are challenging themselves more and more. And now we had our first hotel who achieves minus 40%. I think exactly, Oshmir can quote me, but I think we are global overall at minus 42%. And this comes from the team on the ground. We are talking on hotel with utility consumptions and all of those. So it's really about putting in place. You can send a PPT for people to implement, but the PPT will not implement itself. You need people on the ground who really embrace and who are really going to be endorsing the project, saying, it is my project, I believe in this, and I want to make something. And like I was saying, now that we have our first hotel who has been edge advanced at minus 40%, again, it's creating a best practice where we have other hotels who say, hello, me too, I want to do it. And I also would like to become edge advanced. Now they are contacting the hotel who has been edge advanced and they say, okay, what are you doing? What's the process of what you've put in place? How can we potentially do something? Why? Because it's sustainability, being in Africa, Europe, South America, or Asia, everywhere in the world today. It's a topic that nobody can ignore. You can be an housekeeper, you can be the general manager or the president of a country. Nobody can ignore it anymore. So the idea and what we've tried to work with Edge and with IFC, and speak on behalf of Rosemary, please feel free to interfere, is to say that we try to create not a mindset change, because we don't need to do a mindset change, because everybody is very welcoming to the idea of sustainability in hospitality, but to make sure that we take the time to find what I call some small measures, what works, what doesn't work, and step by step, 1 month after the other, you are improving your performance of minus 10, 20, 30, 40%. So it's more of a journey, and the journey has not stopped. We're only at the start of the journey. That's the good news. After, we need to see if we can have our first hotel who can reach a minus 60%, which starts to be an amazing achievement. But it's really this journey. And when you have supportive partner with Edge and with IFC, well, it's only encouraging you to basically want to do more.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now, you emphasized a lot the your hotel staff, that sort of pushed for such an initiative. If you look at other possible drivers, or other possible triggers, such as guest preferences, regulation, capital markets, financial intermediaries, what role did these other stakeholders play? Was that clearly a minor role, or at least a minor role in the short run, and you expect their role to become more important in the long run? How about the other stakeholders?
So if I take the local regulation stakeholders globally, like I was saying earlier, fortunately today, I don't think there is a single country or a single government that will say, no, we don't want any sustainability actions. Maybe they are, I'm not aware of them. Maybe they are. But so far, in all of the environment where we have been operating, everybody is, I will say, very supportive. There might not be, of course, there might be a framework in some cities of the world which might be a lot more comprehensive than where we are operating in Africa. But this does not prevent the local government to be very receptive to innovation and initiatives on how to improve and what can we do better. So this is the first part. In regards with financing, because when we speak, any green certification, the first question that comes to mind is always financing. And we looked at it from the opposite angle. So how should I say? It's a journey, like I was saying, and you should get you should not move too much in anticipation, and you should do the right moves. And the right moves is to say, this journey is made of a lot of steps, and all those small steps are actually not so expensive. It's part of what I call and what we have asked our hotels to do, operating cost. So we've slightly increased of operating cost. And because if you need to start changing some of the ingredients in the equipments, if you want to start sourcing more local food, if you want to start to see you can reduce your food waste and all of those, it's basically it's about going back to the basic and doing what we have done. We've done with the content and with ourselves, with the teams on the ground, a Japanese method which is called the Kaizen approach. Okay, so the Kaizen approach, which is, I'm sure some of you will be quite aware of this approach, which is what we call the continuous improvement. With one of the basic key pillars of Kaizen is to do what we call the just do it. And just do it, it's not, it has nothing to do with a sports brand, of course, but it's just to say there are simple things which can be done on a daily basis. And those simple things, we just need to do them. Okay, so let's list all those simple things. Those simple things are going to start giving us a benefit. With the benefit we get, we can reinvest in bigger things. With those benefits we get, then we can reinvest in bigger things. And now, yes, after more and more and more and more we put, well, the more we are basically finding new opportunities. And then with basically all improvements that you do, financing new initiatives is, I will say, becoming easier and easier. What, in my view, and what I say, it's really my personal view is we should believe in the journey and do the journey. If you start by putting solar panels, but you still don't have a water restrictor, electricity efficient, waste management of your food, plastic reduction in your hotel, sourcing FSC paper, sourcing, and then the more and more when you go, you start putting layers and layers. You can put a solar panels, but most likely, if your team does not embrace the project, what you will see, and we have seen it in some properties in the region, most likely your solar panels might not even be well maintained because no one believes in it. But if you actually, so if you do a massive investment of millions of dollars, but nobody believes in it, well, you can rest assured that in my view, it might not be as successful as what you want. On the other hand, and that's where, and on top of it, I will tell you, implementing a solar panel in some of the cities in Africa and in sub-Saharan Africa can be a challenge. It's always easy to buy a solar panel, but if you cannot have a company that eventually can do the annual maintenance, and every time you need to find someone from the other half of the planet to be able to do the maintenance of your solar panel, as soon as you're going to start going into 1 year, 2 year, 3 years of maintenance, and you need to have spare parts and all of those, you might end up with a solar panel which will be quite often out of order or not working. So you need to be able to find or to develop, to support a local supply chain which can be sustainable. So you will tell me, give us an example. And it's good because we've just done one example in Dakar. You were speaking about the guest, because I go and trying to do the transition with your last point. Financing we saw, government we saw, and your last point was the guest. And I'm going to give you an example which goes with financing and guest. Today in the hotels, one of the big points of the guests getting very upset, and some of them can be very emotional about it, is a plastic bottle you find in the room. In Africa, globally, if you say to someone, it's okay, drink the water from the tap, which is in your bathrooms, the more likely you will have a number of people who will tell you, no, but I would like to have a bottle which comes from a sealed bottle. In Dakar, where we currently are in Senegal, in Dakar, where we currently are owning 4 hotels, we've asked for the hotels for the last 2 years. So when we speak of a journey, you have to believe in the journey. Huh? We asked the hotel for the last 2 years, what can we do to stop the plastic bottles? And basically, the question was quite simple. Is we went with, of course, one of the main national distributor, without giving a brand, because I'm not into the branding thing, but without giving a brand, we went with the national, the biggest country distributor that gives all of the water bottles that you find in the country. We went to see them and we asked, okay, can you give us glass bottle instead of plastic bottles with the hotels? And the answer was quite simple, and that's why they told us, well, it's great, but so far we really don't have any requests. And actually, we have a simple issue, is that the factory that bottles the water in Senegal is not meant to bottle glass bottle, it's meant to bottle plastic bottle. So basically, we don't have the capacity to be able to do glass bottle at a level, as a company level. Then your main supplier, which is the equivalent of the main distributors you can find in the country, tells you, I just don't have the capability. But you still have your guest telling you, I don't want those plastic bottles. Eventually, it took 2 years. We found a low company that was that actually been supported by some NGOs and some sustainable funding, like you were mentioning before, and they came with a company that's doing glass bottling, and that actually focused on the hospitality market. Today, our 4 hotels have signed up with them. The name of the water it's called Baobab, like the tree. And Baobab, because O in Senegal, it's more of a French-speaking country, and O means water in French. So it's kind of a place, a Baobab, and today we've put it in the hotel. So yes, and I purposely take this example. Why? Because we are supporting a local initiatives, but we had nearly 15 to 18 months of work to make sure that this company was compliant in terms of quality. Because if you give glass bottle to your guests, but the water is not anymore drinkable and you make them sick, I'm not sure your guests are going to be very happy. So all of this, it takes time. And even for us as a company, because that's where I want to make sure, for me, sustainability and edge is the same balance. And when you speak of financing, it's a balance. The water bottle we are giving to our guests is costing us a lot of money than the plastic bottle, because but we've done other initiatives. So when we balance overall our global sustainability initiatives, we know already, as an owning company, we know that there will be some element that's going to be more expensive, some elements, but we are supporting some local companies, local entrepreneurs, and it makes sense to develop a local supply chain. And some of them will give us some benefits. If you balance them both, then it becomes a benefit for everybody.
Okay, maybe we've got, thank you, Pierre, thank you so much. We've got a question from Ivan Castañeda, who asks about local community. Now, Ivan, could you maybe open the micro, even the camera, and maybe ask whether you were also thinking of the creation of local supply chains, or was that not what you implied with local community? What actors do you mean concretely?
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry for not turning on my camera. I'm on the road, a bit of movement here, but thanks first for the presentation, for all this information. Mostly my question is a bit more broad, to be honest, and it's more, we've been talking about environmental, let's say, or actions that focus on lowering, on reducing resources within our hotel, the use of resources within our hotels. But I would like to understand or know a little bit of the experience behind how to connect and how to interact with local communities around our hotels that at the end are the manpower to make everything happen, and also connecting with the focus of Pierre on the operational role behind this. So yes, it's more in the general terms how local communities have been interacting with all these initiatives, and if there's any case study behind or any experience behind this.
Thank you, Ivan. Pierre, Lopang, do you have an answer to that question?
Yes, I can give you, Lopang, please free to intervene. I can give you again in Dakar. So we're in Dakar. So let me stay in Dakar, unless you want me to go to another country, but let me stay in Dakar, where there is the point of Ivan is a very good point. And this point is actually, when we speak of a day, this is really where it's a very long journey. Then it becomes a long journey. The example of the water bottle that we've done with the glass bottle is a local community. But I'm going to give you most of the points of what we can do, and we've started the process. So I do not claim that we have at the moment we have either at the mid of the journey, or we have finished the journey, and it goes beyond age. I'm sorry, it's not a green certification, but it's about the food. When we speak about local communities, and a lot of it comes with the food. So if we take Dakar, for example, our hotels in Dakar have worked together. For some of you who might have noticed, some of you who have already traveled to Africa, if I take a simple example of food that you can find on your breakfast for your buffet, many times there are things like yogurts, which can be imported from the other half of the planet. In Dakar, the 4 hotels have worked with a local company based in Senegal. And again, it took over 2 years to be able to find a local company that will be able to match the quality criteria and be able to procure yogurts who are, I will say, not local made. They are very distinctive because they come into, again, a glass jar instead of a plastic jar. And those glass jars are given back. Of course, everything is sanitized and all of those, but that's why there is a quality control process which takes time to implement to make sure that you do not contaminate your guest. And that you can eventually, when you are an hotel, if you are an hotel of 150, 200 or 300 rooms, hotels in Africa are more of a place where people meet, where people do meetings, where people do events, where people do birthday, anniversaries. A lot of things happens in hotels, which is not especially the case anymore in Europe or in the United States. But in Africa, hotels are still a place where you have a family lunch on a Saturday or a Sunday with all your family and all of those. So the amounts of volume and traffic that we can have and see in an hotel is really huge. And as a point in terms of food, being able to find food that potentially can be done locally. Why did I speak about the amount of people? Is because technically we don't need 50 yogurts a month. We need thousands of yogurts. So eventually, because if you were to have 50 yogurts, but 80% of your yogurts are still imported from Europe, well, the guests aren't going to be happy. I can take the same example with honey. How many times you go in an hotel, you take the honey, you look at the back, and the honey comes from the other half of the planet. So, but finding a local producer, we have hotels in South Africa, and Lopang can speak about it. We've been pushing very strongly with our teams on the ground to be able to have local teas, which are named rooibos tea, which is the only tea in the world which does not have caffeine. It's actually extremely good for your health. If you want to try, please do. Same with the honey, and same with a number of those. How can you work with? But what I just want to say is that it's not. There is no app. If someone wants to develop something, please do. But today, as hoteliers, there is no way of communication to be able to connect you as an hotelier with a local supplier. It's really, it has to be your own research and your own work to be able to contact with local supplier to give you the meat, to give you the honey, to give you all of those produces, which otherwise, if you can't find them very easily, in many hotels, you will tend to go with international companies who are importing, and because it can be easier from a pure process point of view. So Ivan, your question is extremely good. We've started the process, but it's like a just do it action again, where it is taking time. It will take us a lot of time. And with best practices, I think we can have an impact if we have a honey supplier and then a yogurt supplier and then someone who gives us something else, and we go one by one. And then we there and we say, okay, so far we had to import this from another country because it's not done. Okay, let's go and send someone to go and search if there is one person in the country that can do this instead of having it to import it from the other half of the planet.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Ivan. Now, speaking about food and beverage, it's of course an important factor. However, just how important is the question of is that famous stage 1 or 2, respectively, where you find out what's the materiality of the different factors, what really matters. And now today's workshop is with IFC, with EDGE, and not by accident, because the building is key. Maybe Claire, you've got sort of the whole picture now of the different factors that have to be taken into account when it comes to decarbonization. Can you maybe let us know sort of why the building is often sort of where you start that journey?
Yeah, I think when it comes to why people tend to start with the building, it's because it's easier to get an understanding of the impacts. You can very easily look at your energy bills and get an understanding of what that equates to in terms of carbon. When it comes to things like the supply chain, like the yogurts within the F&B, that can be very difficult to get an understanding of the emissions that are related to that and the portion which you should be kind of taking responsibility for, because it's part of those scope 3 emissions. So when we think about 1 and 2 effectively being the building and how you're operating it, and then scope 3 being the sort of the products and services which you're bringing in. So I think that can make it kind of the more difficult for people to approach the F&B, because they're not quite sure of the impacts that they're having. But it's worth thinking about the different stakeholders that are involved in a hotel as well, because the different stakeholders will have responsibility for different sort of portions of the carbon emissions. So, for example, you've got the owner. You could have a different organization, which is the operator, and then you could have a brand, and they all have a role to play within decarbonizing the industry. So the owner is very much kind of thinking about the building itself, and will be looking at the kind of the technologies that they can implement within that. The operator will be thinking more about, okay, what can I do from a behavioral point of view? How can we operate differently? Can we, for example, put all of our guests into one wing and not turn aircon on and heating in the other wing if we're not that busy? There are sort of these things that you can do around controlling use in a building, but they'll also be the ones looking at that supply chain piece, which isn't as relevant to the owner unless they're thinking about the sort of the building of a building back at that point, it certainly makes sense to be thinking about scope 3 and the products that you're kind of bringing in.
Thank you, Claire. Pierre, how did that work with you? Sort of where did you mentioned the list you elaborated with your staff people, no? With the lots of little things which you just did. Sort of did that have to do more with the building or with the supply chain or with both? And while I ask this question once more to all the others, now please ask your questions to Claire, to Roosmir, but also to Pierre.
So on this, like Claire mentioned, you know, it's if you want to start this journey, you really want to start on something which is the easiest for everyone to understand and to comprehend. And the product and the building is really something where we can have a simple action plan to come and say, okay, fine. Wherever we have a water tap, we replace it with a water restrictor. Wherever we have this, we do that way. Replacing honey imported from half of the planet with a local honey. Unfortunately, there is not a one line to say, okay, you go. Unfortunately, if you are currently importing it with your local suppliers, is that for them it's easier. So if you want to start to find a local supplier, you're gonna have to find it on your own, most likely. But not always. Sometimes more and more, like we have mentioned, more and more, we see more and more partners who are more keen to try to find something. But it's always the rule of the market in terms of economics, and until everybody will ask for it, well, it won't happen. And unfortunately, in most of those markets, anyways, the capability of the market and the capacity of the market to be able to supply the entire country won't be enough. And that's why there is huge importation as well in many countries in Africa. But again, it doesn't mean that there is not enough capacity to import honey for the whole country in a country, that you cannot, as a standalone individual, be working with a local partner. But like Claire mentioned, again, I'm sorry, I'm just giving her the credit for this. It's very clear. We have to start where we can measure actions, and the most measurable actions you can do, it's on the building. Once you've done those actions, you know you've got the team on board. Once you have the team on board, you start doing bigger investment, bigger capex, and so forth and so forth. I can mention something to you, which I know some of the team at IFC knows this, but we've done something that, and I like to take it as an example because I had never thought we ever were going to do this. But we started with Edge, we started to measure and this and that, and suddenly someone in the team came back to us saying, oh, there is this new paint which is made of oyster, and we are painting the roof of the building with a paint which is made of oyster. Why oyster? Because oyster actually happens, it's called cool roof. I can give the name because it's, I think, for those brands actually need to support and promote them. But this brand is made of oysters that they have. I'm not exactly an expert of engineer, but they managed to put the oyster shell into the paint as the of it, of course. And what does it do is that they realize that the oyster shell is reflecting 60% of the sun when it reaches, and that's why the oysters as a food, it's, despite the fact that it can be warm outside, the inside of the oyster will be cool. And putting it in the paint has managed for us to reduce 60% of the heat that comes onto the roof of the building. This is not something we had anticipated before. We had started to do what everybody knows, LED, water restrictor, and all of those. And that's why I'm saying it's a journey. And as you go with your journey, you embrace it, you believe in it. And I can tell you that we've done the oyster paint on all of our buildings in Dakar. And of course, you'll do it in a place where you have sun. You don't do it in a place where you don't have sun. But this is, I will say, more common sense. But we did it in Dakar. And in Dakar, the impact it's unfortunately today we've done so many things on the ground of small actions, which individually are maybe not relevant. It's what Claire was saying. You list item one after one, but cumulatively, suddenly end up in Pullman Dakar, where we are the owner with minus more than 40% reduction in 2 years of our utility consumption. So those suddenly give confidence. And once you know you have a team on the ground that has the confidence, that has the empowerment, and that has the belief in the journey, then you can go into something more complex where you say, okay, now let's try to see some of the suppliers, because everybody has to think out of the box and say, but by the way, I know this guy over there who does honey, and then we need to see if his honey is certified. Does he get the quality certification and so forth and so forth? Then we need to send someone, we need to get it certified, to check the certification, say that it's compliant with the local regulation and so forth and so forth. And then, only then, after potentially 9 to 12 months, you can put the honey on your buffet. But I can tell you, maybe you don't, but certainly when you sing as small as a little pot of yogurt in your buffet, you're happy, because there are some places in the world where it's easier than others. But many people believe that because it's not as easy in some places, it means it's impossible. It's impossible. We just need to embrace it, believe in it, and it. Sorry, you can see I'm passionate about this.
No, that's what it takes. That's where the energy comes from. It's from the passion. No, we have hotel representatives in this room. Do they sort of share? Do they have made the same experience as Pierre, or have they made different experiences? I mean, if you don't have questions, maybe you have experiences to share. Who's made similar experiences of small steps in the right direction, just like Pierre described them? And while you think about this, maybe one more question to Rusmi. Now Pierre is obviously sort of represents a positive example, an example of a group that's been on the journey. In your experience, sort of what are the main challenges why either companies do not start or struggle on this journey?
Yeah, and maybe the companies also can say where their struggles are, please. Yeah. Who are here online, for us it's very important to see where is your needs, where can we continue to support you, and maybe also collaborate and create spaces to exchange. Sorry, Rusmir.
No, I think it's all the same. And the biggest feedback that we hear, and it's not necessarily specific to hotels, it's to all green buildings, is this is just too expensive, whether on the green construction side or on the compliance for the certification. Only the rich countries can do it, or only the rich properties can do it. I cannot afford to do this. And so one of the biggest things that IFC has been trying to do is to really build in, as I said, that financial calculator. So the premise behind Edge is it's the first, and so far, only green building system that is ultimately launched by a bank. And it brings those banking sensitivities to it. And so for every single thing, whether you're launching a new hotel or you're trying to retrofit your own, not only will you understand how well am I doing for the environment, you will understand, well, how is that hitting my bottom line? What is my upfront cost? How do I save that money? It really, and it's laser focused on the building envelope itself. We're very carbon focused, and so the idea around energy and water and the materials is the piece that we're looking into. So once companies and like our clients that start using Edge, I think they see, oh my goodness, this is not as expensive as we thought, and the benefits are great. The methodologies can actually be what we call passive technologies: painting the roof, having overhead external shading, doing orientation. There are many things that can actually help a hotel that have nothing to do with putting very expensive technologies inside. And so what we want to do is encourage hotels to go with that lower hanging fruit, get themselves on a pathway. The other part is really understanding how finance works. One of the best case studies I think we have in the business case paper was a Fiji hotel that partnered with a solar company. They went fully solar, but they're saving, I think it was about 50% on their electricity because this was a leasing. They made a leasing agreement with the solar company. The solar company used their rooftop. Hotels are long. There's enough room there. So the hotel got all the benefits and none of the upfront costs. And these arrangements do exist out there as well. So it's really about understanding the case studies and understanding where all of this is going to hit your bottom line.
And usually an individual hotel has all the data necessary to sort of get the results from this calculator. That's not a big challenge.
The calculator is really not scary, but we have trainings. So if you have engineering staff that would like to get trained, IFC has really built an entire ecosystem. So either you can encourage your engineering staff to get trained up on their own, or you can hire a fairly inexpensive edge expert as a local consultant to help you out. And we now have presence in just about every country in the world.
Thank you, Rusmir. Thank you so much. Your last chance, ladies and gentlemen, please ask questions if you have some to Pierre, to Rusmir, to Claire. And yeah, I'll just...
Let me give you one of the things maybe we didn't talk about is this whole idea of green finance. Mm-hmm. So I have a great example, not from the hotel industry, but it's from a shopping center. But if you think about it, it's a very similar idea. They're running their lights and their air conditioning the whole day. So there's comparison there. This was the first green certified shopping center in Côte d'Ivoire. And then after a few years of operation, they decided to refinance their entire loan through a green bond instrument. They're saving 1.5% on their interest rate. So imagine, if you have debt on your asset or you're trying to refinance it, whatever it is you're trying to do, to lower your interest rate by 1.5% is just unparalleled. And the idea behind it is that investors, including development finance institutions like IFC, but now more and more private investors, and you heard our clients talk about, there isn't anybody who's not talking about sustainability these days. They're all looking for quality assets. The certification is important. It has that third-party verification, but there is a competition by international and local investors, banks, development finance institutions, pension funds, all of the other ones. They're looking for quality green assets. If you're launching one, there's a great chance that your interest rate could actually be quite reduced, and that's that greenium part that I talked about.
I would strongly support that because we see a huge increase in demand for sustainable investments, but there are not enough projects to be invested in. And I think there is a big opportunity for companies, for hotel chains and tourism infrastructure, which really invest to get the responding finances through these sustainability investment funds. That is a big chance.
Thank you. Thank you, Rusmir. Thank you, Antonio. I would say, speaking of financing, decarbonization, that brings me to the last part of this workshop. I'd like to close with briefly presenting to you what we're going to do with this Better Hospitality Initiative, where Claire, Rusmir will and other partners will collaborate again, and where you will get more insights now into how to go about decarbonization and also how to go about financing this. I quickly share my screen to show you some more slides on the initiative. I hope you can see my screen. Again, no, just to briefly show you again that action framework which we're going to work with, and the idea mentioned also by Pierre. Now, continuous improvement is precisely this Deming circle. Now, sort of to always go back to where you started and think Did it work the way we thought, or do we have to change something in order to become even better? And now the Better Hospitality Initiative is designed to really help you, give you concrete guidance in all these 5 stages of the process. Now, we're going to, as Pierre said, no, Edge is a fabulous tool, but of course it's not the only tool. So let me go back. So we're going to show different tools and approaches to you, how you can lower your CO2 emissions, how you can finance them, and how you can communicate them. That's really important, because in the end, it's about doing something and then communicating it to your stakeholders to get them engaged. And with this and for this, we'll work with so-called market movers, with enabling organizations that know how the market works and that have the know-how, the capacity to help you on this journey. Then, as a second element, we're going to offer and enable a peer-to-peer exchange of ideas and experiences. The Better Hospitality Initiative is a global initiative, but with regional work streams in Latin America, in Europe, Africa, and in Southeast Asia. We're going to have regional learning groups where you can learn from your peers, and where you will work with local market movers that can help you with, say, good examples and also tools that really work for the specific local context. It's a global initiative and at the same time very close to the ground, to your reality. And last but not least, we're going to organize the BHI Award, which is an award designed to motivate you to develop a concrete project and strategy. And the best projects, the best proposals then will be awarded and rewarded in that market movers, in that organizations that can help you realize that project, actually give you support for the realization of this project, of this strategy. So concretely, the value proposition of the Better Hospitality Initiative is that you get the chance to learn from and ask other companies what they have been doing to reduce their CO2 emissions and their ecological footprint in general. You will learn about different approaches, tools, and finance mechanisms to reduce and report on your emissions. You'll receive a certificate of completion from the UN Global Compact leading local networks for sustainable tourism. These are the local networks whose logos you find here behind. And as I said, the number is still growing. You will receive communication services by these local networks, such as the use of the logo or posts by these networks in the social media. And last but not least, if you excel with your transformation project or strategy, you will receive this BHI award and support from these so-called market movers to implement it. So that's the value proposition of this initiative. And we really hope to have you participate in this initiative. As I said at the beginning, today's workshop was kind of a warm-up. And the global work stream, which is distinct from the regional work streams with the regional learning groups. The global work stream will start in September with the opening session, and then we'll have training sessions, online training sessions in October and November, where you will get further acquainted with these different tools, approaches, finance mechanisms, etc., etc. And then after the global work stream, you will enter the regional learning group to learn from your peers, to enter this peer-to-peer exchange of ideas and experiences. That's our proposition. We'll start communicating on the initiative as of June. And if you allow, we'll gladly keep you informed about the initiative and hope to see you there again. So this from my side, Antonio, may I hand over to you?
Yeah, I would like to thank all who participated and contributed, Rosemary, Claire, Pierre-Etienne, and who else? I forgot. Sorry for that. And also Alex. And the local network colleagues who were joining. We are looking forward to continue that path and this process within, on the one side, the Young Global Compact participant community, but we would also like really to extend and collaborate. The basic of our global network, for those who do not really know the Young Global Compact, we see us as an enabler, and that's why we're collaborating with all possible actors around the globe who are really pushing forward the private sector, which takes its responsibility and contributes to a sustainable and to a better world. So that's why we launched this action, this program, and hopefully it will contribute to your success in a sustainable way. So we will keep in touch with you. We will update you on what is going on, and hopefully we will meet again in September or later on. And with that, I think we can say goodbye and thank you again for all to be here and to have contributed.